In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came to be through him, and without him nothing came to be. What came to be through him was life, and this life was the light of the human race. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came to be through him, but the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, but his own people did not accept him. But to those who did accept him, he gave power to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not by natural generation, nor by human choice, nor by a man's decision, but of God. And the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. And we saw his glory, the glory as of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
He came softly, unobserved, and yet everyone knew him. The time was the 15th century, and the place was Seville in Spain. He came to announce peace and to proclaim the good news. He came to teach and to cure. He came to bring the light. As he walked by the cathedral, a funeral procession for a 7-year-old girl was just beginning to form. He heard the sobs and pleas of the girl's mother. Moved with compassion, he asked the bearers of the funeral bier to halt. He touched the girl. She was raised to life once again. The local archbishop heard about this event. Such a display of power could not be tolerated. He was thus thrown into prison as a common criminal. Under arrest, he was questioned by the Grand Inquisitor of the city. "Why have you come? We don't need you here." The prisoner made no response. The Inquisitor thus continued his harangue, asking the prisoner about his time in the desert at the beginning of his ministry, when he was tempted with the great luxuries of power, wealth, and prestige. "You are a fool," says the Inquisitor. "You should have accepted Satan's offer. Why are you so bent on self-destruction? Why did you choose miracle, mystery, and authority over power, prestige, and wealth? There is no longer a need to believe in you and what you bring. Go away, you're not welcome here." This time the prisoner answered, not with words, but with action. He embraced the Inquisitor, kissed him, and walked out of the prison in order to offer himself to another group at another time in history. This little story was taken from the chapter called The Grand Inquisitor in the famous book, The Brothers Karamazov, that was written by the Russian author Dostoevsky. This chapter describes the rejection of Christ, who has come to bring light and goodness and peace to a world that needs him, but refuses to accept his presence. In a similar way, our readings on this Christmas Day speak of what Christ brought to the world and how he was rejected. The prophet Isaiah in the first reading writes to the Hebrew people in exile in Babylon. The people have little hope. They live with the thought that they have been rejected by God. Isaiah, however, prophesies a new beginning for the nation. This new life for the people will restore Zion. The Lord will come to the people announcing peace, bearing good news, comforting the people and announcing salvation. Thus the Lord will provide all that the people need to renew their lives and live as God's people. And in today's gospel, Jesus uses the Word made flesh, that image. And actually he says that Jesus was the Word made flesh, the presence of God who dwells among us, the light that no darkness can overcome, the Son of God who himself brought a message of salvation and hope. Today we celebrate Christmas, an occasion to remember the arrival of Jesus, the one who is the light, the Son of God, who has come into our world. Now we know the end of his story. We know that the end of that story as well as its beginning. He was rejected by the very people to whom he came. To his own he came, yet his own knew him not. That's what St. John told us in the Gospel. Have things changed in these past 2,000 years? As we look around the world today, we wonder if the Prince of Peace has made any progress in his struggle to be accepted. We know that there are thousands of people who are still starving. We know that terrorism wreaks havoc in our world. And sickness and death bring destruction and pain and grief to our personal and family lives. And so we ask, where is the good news? Where is the comfort and salvation that God is supposed to bring? With these problems and with this bad news, what significance does the birth of Christ mean? The answer is totally up to us. If we do nothing to make his presence known in the world, if we do nothing to make his presence meaningful, Christ's rejection will continue. Just like Dostoevsky's Grand Inquisitor. Jesus brought light and hope so that a people in darkness would never be fearful again. It's up to us. Maybe you've seen the famous painting that's based on an image in the book of the Bible, the book of Revelation. It shows Jesus standing at some door. And Jesus says, "Here I stand knocking at the door. If anyone opens to me, I will enter and have supper with him." And so may we respond to that knock of Christ on our door. May we open up the door to our hearts so that he may enter. May we welcome the Prince of Peace, and may the miracle of Jesus' birth transform us now and forever. Amen.